Hi New Zealanders. The videos we posted earlier in the week have had a couple of thousand views and there have been hundreds of comments. We're all about finding New Zealanders whose voice would not otherwise be heard, looking them in the eye and listening as they share their own experience from their heart. Today we're going to hear from Alex, who with his family came to New Zealand 15 years ago. I've cut the story down to fit within 6 minutes to make it easy to view, but Alex has looked over the edit and he confirms that it's true to his meaning.
We'd seen the Canadian convoy and the huge effect that had had, and when we saw the New Zealand convoy and the reception it had got from when it set off from the far north and from Bluff down in Southland, and when we just saw the reaction that every small town it went through, the roads were just lined with people, and just the sheer joy on their faces, the thanks on display, the relief, just the outpouring that we weren't all just these individuals that we've been portrayed to be, that actually a lot of New Zealand and a lot of diverse people in New Zealand who've been affected, vaccinated, unvaccinated, sacked, employed, mandated, unmandated, masked, unmasked, everybody, old, young. We just knew we had to get involved. Up until that stage, we'd never been to a protest. We'd just, talked to people in the local town and encouraged them and said, how have you been affected, and just tried to gauge the feeling. And you could see that since certainly November, December, the mood across the country had changed. We got to Sanson at the top of State Highway 1 and waited there. And within sort of 2 minutes of speaking to strangers, we'd been offered to stay on somebody's couch if we didn't have a motel to stay in. We'd been just welcomed as friends, spoken to as fellow human beings and not as something to be feared, something to be avoided. It was like the clock of time had been reversed in New Zealand, and it was the New Zealand from 15 years ago when we came, strangers talking, offering you things. You're not a stranger, you're a friend I've just not met yet. Come and stay in my house. And then within another 2 or 3 minutes, stood on the side in Sanson, we'd been offered another couch to stay on. And we waited there for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and we had New Zealand flags, and we had the children with us, they had New Zealand flags. And the response, there was probably 40 to 50% of cars and trucks going past were beeping, were waving, were so, go on, really, really genuinely happy. And there was a few people giving it down, but generally they'd just ignore you if they didn't want to take part, and nobody was saying, no, you must join us, take your mask off. There was none of that. It was a carnival atmosphere on the side of a road. And then we they needed a second campsite in Palmerston North, and we found where it was, and it was just a farmer's field, and he was this huge biker guy with Stormtrooper tattooed on his face, but he was such a nice fella, and he'd literally just offered his family's farm to all these people to stay, and it was just great, and everybody was so happy, and people were talking. And the last 2 years has been, as much as it's been about health, it's been about crushing people and crushing humanity and crushing people's spirit. And you could feel it was like a safety valve being released, and people just wanted to talk and not even tell you anything, just talk like we used to do. And it's been amazing, and it's just getting bigger and better, and there's just more and more on display, and stuff you wouldn't think of. There's bales of hay all around us to keep people dry, and it's just amazing. And I can't wait to come in every day and see it again and talk to people and be humans again, humans. And so I'll be here tomorrow, and I'll be here as long as it takes. And there's no look around, there's no violence. And like anything, there's a couple of people who may be angry, because who knows what people's stories are. Have they lost their jobs? Did they not get to see their parents die? How were they affected by the horrors that should never have been visited on democratic countries like New Zealand? How have they been affected? You don't know those people's stories or how they've been affected. And how can we? And how should we? All we've got to do is say, hey mate, how are you? Are you alright? What can I do for you? And that's what being here is all about. It's about recreating the society that we want to live in. And I'm so proud to be part of it. And as I spoke to somebody yesterday in the terrible pouring rain, I said, my granddad ran up the Normandy beaches. That's what he did. And if all I've got to do is stand in the rain with a hot cup of tea and talk to people and just be there, well, I think we can all do that. And I'm so proud to be part of this and be able to do this peacefully.